At the airport, my daughter-in-law screamed at me in front of the whole family. "You are in the way. You do not know how to travel. You should not even be here." My son did not say a single word. Nobody knew that I, at 70 years old, had paid for the entire vacation. I canceled their tickets and went on the trip alone. That time, the one who did not know how to travel was the only one who flew. There are moments in life that split you in two. Moments where the world stops, and something inside you breaks with a sound so loud that only you can hear it. For me, that moment arrived at O'Hare International Airport. It was a Tuesday in February at 7 in the morning. I was surrounded by suitcases, rushing tourists, and the gaze of my own family staring at me as if I were a stranger. My name is Margaret Sullivan. I am 70 years old. All my life, I was the woman who supported everyone, the one who solved problems, the one who stayed silent to keep the peace. But that day, standing in front of the check-in counter with the air conditioning freezing my skin and the noise of luggage carts ringing in my ears, I understood something that would change me forever. Sometimes the person who disrespects you the most is the one who owes you the most. It all started with a scream. Not just any scream, a scream that cut through the air like a knife. "That is enough, Margaret. You are in the way. You do not know how to travel. You should not even be here." The voice of Jessica, my daughter-in-law, bounced off the airport walls. I felt dozens of eyes fixed on me. An older lady in a straw hat looked at me with pity. A young man with headphones lowered his music to watch. 2 airline employees exchanged an uncomfortable look. And I stood there paralyzed, clutching my handbag against my chest as if it were a shield. Jessica was in front of me. Her nails were perfectly painted, a deep wine color pointing at me like claws. Her black hair was pulled back in a ponytail so tight it seemed to pull her face backward. She wore Gucci sunglasses on her head even though we were indoors. And that French perfume she always wore so strong, it was dizzying, invaded the space between us. Mother-in-law, she spat the word as if it burned her tongue. "You ask about everything. Where is the connection? What time do we board? Where do we leave the checked bags? It seems like you have never left your house." My heart was beating so fast I felt the pulse in my temples. I looked at my son Patrick, searching for his eyes, waiting, something, anything, a word, a gesture. But he looked at the floor hands in the pockets of his beige trousers. His jaw was tense. It was as if suddenly the pattern of the airport tiles was the most fascinating thing in the world. "Patrick," I whispered. "Nothing." My 42-year-old son, the boy I carried in my arms, the one whose scraped knees I healed, the one I supported when no one believed in him. That man did not raise his eyes. The twins, Matt and Sophie, my 8-year-old grandkids, were hiding behind their father. Sophie had glassy eyes. Matt was biting the strap of his Spider-Man backpack. They did not understand what was happening, but they felt the tension like when the sky turns gray before a storm. "Jessica, I only asked if the connection in Los Angeles was at the same terminal," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though I was shaking. "It is a normal question, normal for someone who does not know how to move in the modern world." She cut me off. "Look, mother-in-law, I organized this whole trip. I found the hotel. I coordinated the schedules. I took care of the tours. You just had to be here. You just had to exist." Those words cut deeper than the screaming because no one in that airport knew the truth. No one knew that I had paid every single penny of that trip. The $4,000 for the 5 plane tickets, the $5,000 for the all-inclusive hotel in Hawaii, the $1,200 for the additional tours that Jessica had suggested because it would be nice for the kids, almost $10,000 of my savings, money I gathered working for 35 years as a bookkeeper in a small office downtown, money. I saved penny by penny while my husband, God rest his soul, fought against cancer, money that was my security, my peace of mind, my backup for old age. And there I was being humiliated as if I were a burden, a nuisance, an obstacle. Jessica turned to the employee at the counter, ignoring me completely. "Excuse the delays. You know how older people are. Everything scares them. Everything confuses them." The employee, a young man of no more than 25 with slicked back hair, looked at me with that mix of pity and discomfort. He said nothing. He just nodded. I felt something break inside me. It was not dramatic. There was no background music or slow motion. It was silent, like when a dry branch finally gives way after supporting too much weight. And in that precise instant, while the family I had supported looked at me as if I were the problem, I made a decision. "I am going to the restroom," I announced, with a calm that even I did not recognize in my voice. No one responded. Jessica was already showing the passports. Patrick was checking his phone. The kids were playing with a tablet. I walked toward the restrooms with a firm step, even though my legs were trembling. Once inside, I locked myself in the last stall and sat on the toilet lid. My hands were sweating. My heart was galloping in my chest. I took my cell phone out of my purse. That iPhone Patrick had given me last year, saying, "This is so you stay connected, Mom." I opened the airline app. There they were. 5 tickets, all in my name as the account holder. And then, with trembling fingers but a mind clearer than ever, I did something I never imagined I would do. But that was just the beginning. If you have ever been made to feel invisible in your own family, if you ever paid the price of keeping the peace with your dignity, stay until the end of this story. Because what happened next, nobody saw coming. And if this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel Elderly Stories for more real-life stories you need to hear. Before telling you what I did in that airport bathroom, you need to understand who I was. Because I was not born invisible. I was not always the woman who swallowed insults and smiled when it hurt. There was a time when Margaret Sullivan was someone with her own voice. I was born in a small town in Ohio in 1955. We lived in a modest house with a porch where my grandmother grew mint and rosemary. I grew up smelling pot roast on Sundays and seeing my mother's rough hands working late sewing school uniforms for half the neighborhood. I learned as a child that the women in my family did not wait to be rescued. We rescued ourselves. At 20, I moved to Chicago with a cardboard suitcase and an accounting degree I got studying at night while working days at a stationery store. I got a job at a small accounting firm where Mr. Henderson hired me because, in his words, "You have the eyes of someone who does not give up easily." He was right. For 35 years, I arrived at that office before anyone else and left after everyone. I managed the books for restaurants, mechanic shops, pharmacies, and fabric stores. I never stole a penny. I never turned in a report late. And when Mr. Henderson had tax trouble because of a mistake his son made, I was the one who spent 3 months reorganizing everything to save him from bankruptcy. He never forgot it. When he retired, he left me a bonus of $10,000 that I invested wisely along with my life savings. That allowed me to buy my 2-bedroom condo in the suburbs, small, but mine, with windows facing a park where children played soccer on Saturdays. I met Robert at a wedding. He was a civil engineer with big hands and an easy laugh. He was not rich, but he was noble. We got married in 1982 with a simple party in my parents' backyard and a waltz to the rhythm of Unchained Melody. A year later, Patrick was born, my son. My only son. The boy with honey-colored eyes who grabbed my pinky finger while I sang him lullabies to sleep. The shy boy who drew buildings in his notebooks and dreamed of being an architect. The young man who hugged me crying the day his father died. Robert got sick when Patrick was 17. Pancreatic cancer. 4 years of hospitals, chemotherapy, sleepless nights. I kept working because someone had to pay the medical bills. Patrick left college for a semester to help, but I forced him to go back. "Your father wants to see you graduate," I told him. And he did it. He became an architect 3 months before Robert passed away. My husband died peacefully, our hands intertwined after whispering to me, "You took good care of us, Margaret. Now take care of yourself." I did not follow his advice. After the funeral, I poured myself into Patrick, maybe too much. I paid for the master's degree he could not afford. I lent him $5,000 when he wanted to partner with a friend in a design studio. He never paid me back, but it did not matter. "Pay me later, son," I would say, and he would nod with that crooked smile he inherited from his father. Things changed when he met Jessica. It was at an architecture expo downtown. She worked in public relations for a construction supply company. Tall, thin, with that type of polished beauty that comes from expensive salons and exclusive gyms. She was 28, 8 years younger than Patrick. From the first day he brought her to eat at my house, I knew something did not fit. She was not rude. On the contrary, she was charming. "Oh, Margaret, you cook so deliciously," she would say while tasting my homemade chicken soup. "This house has so much history. I am sure beautiful moments happened here." She brought flowers. She asked about my health. She hugged Patrick with so much theater it looked like a scene from a soap opera. But I saw beyond that. I saw how her eyes scanned my condo, calculating values, how she asked casually how much it had cost, if it was paid off, if I planned to leave it to Patrick. I saw how she pulled him away from me little by little with soft but sharp phrases. "Oh, honey, your mom is already old. Do not make her cook so much. Or do not you think you should set boundaries? She calls you 4 times a day." Patrick changed. He started canceling our Sunday breakfasts. He stopped consulting me on important decisions. When I expressed my doubts about Jessica, he looked at me with tired eyes. "Mom, you are jealous because now there is another woman in my life." Those words hurt me more than any slap. They got married in 2019, an expensive wedding in a garden with 200 guests and a banquet that cost $20,000. I contributed $6,000 because Jessica said her parents could not cover everything. It is just that you know how it is, Margaret, with the economy. There was always a crisis when it came to their money, but never when it came to mine. The twins were born a year later, Matt and Sophie. 2 perfect babies who filled my heart with a joy I had not felt since Robert was alive. I went to the hospital every day. I brought food to Jessica and Patrick. I stayed overnight when the children would not let them sleep. Jessica thanked me with perfect smiles. "I do not know what we would do without you, Margaret." But she never left me alone with the babies for long. She never accepted my help without reminding me of it later as if it were a debt. "Thank God you supported us when the kids were born. Not all mothers-in-law are that useful." Useful? That word haunted me. Over the years, the requests grew. "Margaret, can you watch the kids this weekend? We have a work event." "Margaret, can you lend us money for tuition? The studio is a little tight this month." "Oh, Margaret, can you take the kids to the doctor? Jessica has a spa appointment she cannot cancel." I always said yes, because they were my family, because I loved those children, because I thought that way I would keep my son close. My friend Ruth warned me 1,000 times. Ruth lived in my building. She was a widow like me, with completely white hair she wore with pride and a direct way of speaking that did not beat around the bush. "Margaret, they are squeezing you like a lemon," she told me while we drank coffee in my kitchen. "You give, and they only receive." "When do they give to you?" "Ruth, they are my family," I responded, stirring the sugar in my cup. "That is what you do in families. In families you give and receive, my friend. Yours is a one-way street." I did not listen to her, or I did not want to listen to her, because accepting her truth meant accepting that I was alone, that my son saw me as a bank, not as his mother, that my daughter-in-law tolerated me as long as I was useful. And then came February, and that dinner where Jessica threw the perfect bait. But I will tell you about that in a moment. Have you ever given everything for your family only to realize they were using you? This story is just beginning to reveal how far abuse disguised as love can go. Do not go anywhere. It was a Friday in August when Jessica planted the seed of what would end up being my awakening. I had arrived at their house in the suburbs, a modern 3-bedroom townhouse they rented for $2,500 a month. I was carrying a pot of soup I had prepared that afternoon. Patrick had told me he had a cold, and I, as always, responded with food. The door opened, and the smell of vanilla-scented candles hit me. Jessica appeared in brand-name sweatpants and a perfectly ironed white blouse, even for being at home. Her loose hair fell in waves that surely had cost her 2 hours at the salon. "Oh, Margaret, what a nice detail," she said, with that smile that no longer convinced me. Come in, come in." We were just about to have dinner. The table was set with those modern gray plates she had bought at a fancy boutique. Patrick was sitting checking his laptop glasses on his nose tie loosened. The twins were playing in the living room with building blocks, their high-pitched voices filling the space. "Mom." Patrick barely looked up. You did not have to bother. Bother. That word scraped me inside, but I smiled. It is no bother, son. It is soup. It will be good for your cold. Jessica served the soup in deep bowls while I sat in the chair they always assigned me, the one with its back to the window, the least comfortable one. We ate with light conversation. The kids talked about school. Patrick mentioned a new project. I listened as always, waiting for some moment where I felt my presence mattered beyond the food I brought. Then while Jessica was clearing the plates, she threw the phrase with that rehearsed casualness that only someone calculating can achieve. Oh, I really want us all to go to the beach. The kids have never been to Hawaii. Matt lifted his head immediately, eyes shining. Hawaii, like in Aunt Marcella's photos. Yes, my love, Jessica ruffled his hair. With turquoise blue water-white sand hotels with water slides. Sophie clapped excitedly. Patrick smiled, but it was a tired smile. It would be incredible, but you know how things are. The studio is barely picking up. Closing in January was hard. Jessica sighed dramatically, leaving the plates on the kitchen counter with more noise than necessary. I know, honey, but the kids are growing. Matt asked me the other day why his friends from school go to the beach, and we do not. It broke my heart. I recognized the trap. I had seen it before. The sigh. The mention of the children. The guilt disguised as a family dream. All perfectly designed so that someone, specifically me, would offer a solution. But this time, something in me resisted. I remained silent, drinking my glass of iced tea, watching the scene unfold. Patrick took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Jessica, it is not that I do not want to. It is just that a trip like that costs, what, $8,000 for the 5 of us. We do not have it. $10,000 more or less. Jessica sat down again, crossing her legs. I already looked. In February, prices drop a little. An all-inclusive package with flights 5-star hotel on the beach tours. She paused with calculation. But you are right. It is impossible. Silence settled on the table. Matt and Sophie looked at us with that pure hope of children who still do not understand what there is no money means. Patrick drummed his fingers on the table. And Jessica? Jessica watched me out of the corner of her eye, waiting. I felt the weight of her expectations like stones in my chest. I remembered all the other times. The tuition I lent, the emergencies I ended up paying for, the refrigerator that broke down, and I helped replace. I was always the solution to their problems. And for a moment, for the first time in years, I thought about saying no. But then Sophie spoke with that little voice that melted me. Grandma Margaret, have you been to Hawaii? I turned to her. Her hazel eyes, her grandfather Robert's eyes, looked at me with genuine curiosity. Yes, my darling, many years ago when your grandfather was alive. And is it pretty? Beautiful. The sea looks like it is not real because it is so blue. I would like to see it, she said, and went back to her blocks. Without pressure, without manipulation, just a child dreaming. And there I was, trapped between my instinct to protect myself and my sick need to be loved by this family that felt more distant every day. Jessica got up to pour coffee, her voice floating from the kitchen. Well, maybe next year, or the other, someday the kids will see the beach. It is okay, that phrase, it is okay, sounded exactly like what it was, a hook. Patrick sighed and went back to his laptop. The children kept playing, and I stayed there holding my empty cup, feeling the walls of that trap closing around me. I could help with something. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Jessica poked her head out from the kitchen, eyes shining. How is that, mother-in-law? I said that. I swallowed hard. That I could contribute something for the trip. Not everything, but something. Patrick looked up surprised. Mom, no, we are not going to allow... Oh, but it would be a dream. Jessica returned to the table, sitting down with renewed energy. Really, mother-in-law. Because look, if you help us with the plane tickets, which are about $4,000, we could cover the hotel and... Jessica. Patrick tried to interrupt. No, my love, let me finish. If Grandma Margaret covers the flights, we will save for the hotel. Between everyone, it would be possible. The kids could see the ocean. And mother-in-law, of course you would come. It would be a family trip. When was the last time we all went out together? Never. The answer was never, because they never included me in their plans unless they needed something. But Matt and Sophie were standing now, jumping, shouting, "We are going to Hawaii," with that overflowing happiness of childhood. And Patrick looked at me with something I interpreted as gratitude, although now I know it was simple relief that someone else solved his problems. "It is fine," I said, feeling my savings account evaporate in my mind. "I will pay for the tickets." Jessica clapped, got up, and hugged me with an enthusiasm that smelled of expensive perfume and falsehood. "Oh, mother-in-law, you are an angel. The kids are going to die of happiness." "Right, honey," she said to Patrick. My son nodded, returning to his laptop. "Thanks, Mom. Seriously." That night, I drove back to my condo with my hands gripping the steering wheel. The radio was off. I only heard the engine of my 2015 sedan and the hum of the city. When I arrived, I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the framed photograph on the nightstand. Robert and I in Hawaii, 1995, with the sea behind us and real smiles. "What am I doing, Robert?" I asked the silence, but Robert was no longer there to answer me. And I was alone making decisions my heart knew were wrong, but that my fear of loneliness forced me to take. What I did not know then was that the trip I had just agreed to pay for would be the one that finally taught me to say no. But to get there first, I would have to hit rock bottom. Have you ever said yes when your whole being screamed no? What comes next is the hardest part, when generosity becomes disguised abuse. Stay, because this story is about to take a turn you will not expect. Hell does not always come with fire and screams. Sometimes it comes disguised as, "Thank you, mother-in-law. What would we do without you?" During the 3 months following that dinner, I learned that you can feel completely alone while surrounded by family. 2 days after my promise, Jessica called me. It was 8 in the morning. I had just finished my chamomile tea when the phone vibrated on the kitchen table. "Mother-in-law, good morning. Look, I was checking the tickets. I found some on the airline app for $800 each. It is 5 people, total $4,000 exact. I need you to make the purchase today because the promotion ends. There was no, 'How did you sleep?' There was no, 'Are you sure you can?' Just instructions." Jessica, "I cannot today. I have an appointment with my doctor at 10. "Oh, mother-in-law, but if we do not buy them right now, we lose these prices. Just send me your card details on WhatsApp and I will buy them. Later we coordinate so you can deposit to me." Something in my stomach turned. Giving my card details to Jessica felt like giving the key to my house to a stranger, but she kept talking. "Or if you prefer, I will send you the link and you buy them. But it has to be today, okay? I am really counting on you, mother-in-law." She hung up before I could answer. I canceled my medical appointment. I went to the website. I bought the 5 tickets with my bank card, watching those $4,000 disappear from my account with a click. Money I had saved by cutting expenses buying at the market instead of the supermarket using the same wool coat for 6 years. I sent a screenshot of the confirmation to Jessica. Her response arrived 3 hours later. "Okay, thanks." 2 words. No exclamation marks, no emojis. As if I had just paid for her coffee, not a complete vacation. The following days were a parade of requests disguised as favors. Jessica added me to a WhatsApp group called Hawaii Trip, where Patrick and I were. But I quickly realized that I was only there to receive orders, not to give opinions. "Mother-in-law booked the all-inclusive hotel. I am sending you the link. It is $1,000 a night, 5 nights. Total, $5,000. My heart skipped a beat. I had already paid $4,000. Now they wanted me to pay $5,000 more. I wrote in the chat, "I thought you guys would cover the hotel." Jessica replied, "Oh, mother-in-law, it came out more expensive than we calculated. But look, if you cover the hotel, we will pay for all the tours and extra meals. Deal." Patrick wrote nothing. His silence was his way of saying he agreed with Jessica. I called Ruth that night. She came to my condo with a bottle of homemade eggnog and sat in front of me on my mustard-colored living room chair. "Margaret, friend, open your eyes," she told me, her wrinkled hands holding the glass. "They are bleeding you dry. You already paid for the flights. Now they want you to pay for the hotel. What is next? The air they are going to breathe. Ruth, They are my grandkids. I want them to know the ocean. Your grandkids? Yes, but Jessica Patrick, they are adults with jobs. Why do they have to go to the beach with your money? I had no answer, because the truth hurt too much to say out loud. I paid because I was afraid that if I did not, they would push me away more than I already was. I paid for the hotel another $5,000 that came out of my investment account, the one that had grown with so much effort over the years. I had about $12,000 invested. Now almost nothing remained. But the money was only part of the problem. The worst were the slights. Jessica took absolute control of everything. She chose the hotel without asking me what I liked. She chose the rooms. A junior suite with ocean view for them and the kids, and a standard room on the 3rd floor for me. Because you are going to be with us all day anyway, mother-in-law. The room is just for sleeping. When I tried to suggest a snorkeling tour, I had seen Jessica replied in the group, "Oh, mother-in-law, that tour is very heavy. At your age, I do not think you can handle so much sun and swimming. Better rest at the hotel while we go, at my age. I am 70, not 90. I walk 4 kilometers 3 times a week. I climb the stairs of my building without losing my breath. But for Jessica, I was a useless old woman who needed to be taken care of." One afternoon in November, I went to their house to drop off some new sweaters I had knitted for the twins. Jessica opened the door with the phone to her ear. "Yes, friend, I know. Imagine we have to take my mother-in-law. No, well, yes, it is an obligation. But oh well, she paid, and we have to invite her. Okay, I have to go. She just arrived." She hung up and smiled at me as if she had not just said that I was a burden, an obligation. As if taking me was equivalent to carrying a heavy suitcase you did not want but had to bring. I said nothing. I just handed her the sweaters and left. In the elevator, tears fell silently. An older lady entering on the 2nd floor looked at me with concern. "Are you okay, ma'am?" "Yes," I lied. "It is just the cold." December came, and the WhatsApp group became unbearable. Jessica sent photos of swimsuits she was buying. Patrick shared memes about vacations. The twins sent excited audio messages. And me. I just read without participating, feeling like a ghost in my own family. One day I dared to write, "What time is the flight?" To be ready in time. Jessica replied 2 hours later. 7:40 a.m. "We have to be at the airport at 5:30. Do not be late, mother-in-law," the way she wrote it. As if I were the irresponsible one. As if I were the one who always caused problems. Ruth noticed my change. I, who was always animated, now walked with slumped shoulders. One afternoon in January, while we were having coffee at a diner near my house, she took my hand. "Margaret, you are still in time to cancel. Tell them you are not going. Let them pay for their own trip." "I already paid for everything, Ruth. I cannot back out." "Yes, you can. It is your money, your decision." But I did not listen to her, because a part of me still believed that once we were in Hawaii, things would be different, that Jessica would relax, that Patrick would see me, really see me, that the kids and I would build sandcastles, and everything would be worth it. How wrong I was. The night before the trip, I packed my suitcase. I put in my black swimsuit I used in Florida 2 years ago, my sun hat, sunscreen, the book I never finished, and a small photograph of Robert, because I needed to take him with me somehow. I sat on the edge of my bed, looking at the closed suitcase, and felt a void in my chest I could not explain, as if I knew something bad was going to happen, as if my body was warning me to turn back. But I did not listen to that voice. At 4 a.m, my alarm rang. I showered, dressed in my beige linen pants and my coral long-sleeved blouse. I tied my hair in a low bun. I looked in the mirror. It is just 7 days, I told myself. You can handle 7 days. I called an Uber. The driver, a man of about 50 with a thick mustache, helped me with the suitcase. "Going on vacation, ma'am." "Yes, with my family." "How nice." "Enjoy it a lot." I did not know what to answer because deep down I knew I was not going to enjoy anything. I was going to survive. I was going to smile when it hurt. I was going to swallow insults disguised as jokes. I was going to be invisible while paying for everything. But what I did not know, what I could never imagine, is that this trip was not going to break me. It was going to wake me up. Have you ever paid for love? Have you bought your place in your own family? What is coming is the moment where everything explodes. And believe me, you are not going to want to miss what I did next. I arrived at O'Hare at 5:15 in the morning. The sky was still dark, barely stained gray on the horizon. The cold February air cut my face as I dragged my suitcase through the drop-off area. My hands were trembling not from the cold, but from the usual nerves. Arriving late, forgetting something being in the way. I entered Terminal 2 and searched with my eyes for my family. Nothing. Just sleepy travelers dragging suitcases, airline employees in their impeccable uniforms, the smell of fresh coffee mixed with the chemical scent of freshly mopped floors. I took out my phone. It was 5:18 a.m. I wrote to the group, "I am here. Where are you?" The 2 blue check marks appeared immediately. Seen. But no one answered. I waited 15 minutes, standing with my suitcase beside me, feeling ridiculous. People passed around me with purpose, with clear destinations, with families waiting for them. I was alone, waiting for a family I had paid for completely, but who did not even bother to answer me. At 5:47 a.m., I saw them arrive. Jessica came in front, clicking her heels in brown leather boots, tight jeans, a white linen blouse, and those damn Gucci sunglasses on her head, even though we were indoors. She was dragging a huge pink suitcase that surely weighed more than the 50 pounds allowed. Her face was tense with that expression of annoyance I already knew well. Behind came Patrick with the twins, each pulling their own little suitcase with wheels. Matt was wearing an Avengers cap. Sophie was carrying a unicorn plushie almost her size. My son carried a backpack on his shoulder and a face of not having slept well. "Good morning," I said, approaching with a smile that hurt to hold. "Hi, Mom." Patrick gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, one of those automatic ones without feeling. Jessica walked right past, straight toward the flight screens. Let's see, I need to see which counter we check in at." "It is counter 12, I said, because I had already checked 3 times on the app. Jessica looked at me with those honey-colored eyes that once seemed pretty to me, but now I only saw as calculating. "How do you know?" "I saw it on the app. The flight leaves from gate—" "Okay, mother-in-law, we will see that later. Right now, I need to find where to check in." I swallowed my response. "Grandma Margaret, the one who knows nothing, the one who gets in the way with information." We walked toward the check-in area. Jessica was in front, bossing everyone around. Matt, do not wander off. Sophie put that plushie away. "Patrick, did you bring the passports?" My son checked his backpack with clumsy movements like someone with sleep and stress. We reached the counter. The line was long, but it moved fast. I stayed a little behind, giving them space, watching how Jessica organized the documents, how Patrick lifted Sophie to see the screen, how the twins laughed about something. A family. I was watching them from the outside as if I were looking at a photograph where I did not belong. When our turn came, Jessica handed over the 5 passports. The employee, that young man with slicked back hair, started to review them. "Are you checking bags?" "Yes, 3 suitcases," answered Jessica. While they weighed the suitcases, I took out my phone to check something about the hotel. I do not know what I saw exactly. Some detail about check-in time, and without thinking in a normal voice, I asked, "Jessica, is the connection in Los Angeles at the same terminal, or do we have to change?" It was a simple, legitimate question, the kind of thing anyone asks before a trip with layovers. But Jessica turned around as if I had shouted an insult. "What? I was just asking if—" "Oh, mother-in-law, seriously?" Again with the questions. Her voice rose in volume. Some people in the next line turned to look. "Jessica, it is just a question." "No, it is not just a question." She dropped her Louis Vuitton bag on the counter with a dry thud. "Since you arrived, you have not stopped. Where is the counter? What time do we board? Where do we leave the suitcases? Is the connection in the same terminal? It seems like you have never traveled in your life." My heart started beating in my ears. I felt the blood rush to my face. "Jessica, calm down. I am not going to calm down." Now she was shouting, and not just our line was looking, but people from other counters. I am sick of it. The whole way here, I was thinking that we were going to have to put up with your questions, your insecurity, your... She searched for the word, like someone looking for a knife to stab with. "That is enough, Margaret. You are in the way. You do not know how to travel. You should not even be here." The silence that followed was so dense I could feel it on my skin. "You are in the way. You should not be here." The words bounced off the airport walls in my head and my heart. I looked around. An older lady in a straw hat watched me with pity, her mouth slightly open. A businessman with a briefcase had stopped his path to look. The employees at the counter exchanged an uncomfortable look. A young man with headphones took them off to hear the drama better. And I, Margaret Sullivan, who had paid every penny of that trip, was being publicly humiliated as if I were a foolish child who did not know how to behave. I searched for my son's eyes. I needed him to say something, anything, to defend me, to tell his wife she was out of line, to remember that I was his mother, not an annoying stranger. Patrick had a tense jaw, eyes fixed on the ground, hands in the pockets of his beige trousers, and he said nothing. Absolutely nothing. "Patrick!" My voice came out broken, barely a whisper. He looked up for half a second but could not hold my gaze. He went back to looking at the floor as if the gray tiles had fascinating secrets written on them. The twins were scared. Matt was biting his lip. Sophie squeezed her unicorn against her chest, eyes glassy. They felt the tension but did not understand what was happening. They only knew their grandma was in trouble and their mom was angry. Jessica continued now with a more controlled but equally poisonous voice. "Mother-in-law, you ask everything. Where is the connection? What time do we board? Where do we leave the checked bags? It seems like you have never left your house. It is exhausting." The employee at the counter looked at us, not knowing what to do, the passport still in his hand. I felt something break inside me. It was not dramatic. It did not make a sound. But I felt it as clearly as if a bone had snapped. It was my patience, my tolerance, my sick need to be accepted by this family that treated me like trash. And in that break, in that space, where something died, something new was born. Clarity. I looked at Jessica. I really looked at her. I saw her mouth perfectly painted pale pink, her impeccable nails, her expensive clothes, her attitude of superiority. And I understood something I should have understood months ago, maybe years. She was never going to respect me. It did not matter how much I paid. It did not matter how much she humiliated me. To her, I was just a wallet with legs, useful when money was needed, invisible when not. I looked at Patrick, my son, the baby I nursed, the boy whose scrapes I healed, the teenager who cried in my arms when his father died. That man could not look me in the eye because he knew. He knew that what was happening was wrong, but it was more comfortable to look the other way. And in that moment, with the airport noise around, with the eyes of strangers fixed on me, with my family treating me like a burden they had paid for using my money, I made the hardest and most liberating decision of my life. I am going to the restroom, I said with a calm I did not know I had. Jessica snorted. "Well, hurry up, we have to check in." I grabbed my purse, turned around, and walked toward the restrooms. My legs were trembling, but my steps were firm. I passed the lady in the hat who looked at me with compassion. I passed the businessman who shook his head. I passed the young man with headphones who watched me with curiosity. I entered the women's restroom. It was clean, with white walls and large mirrors. It smelled of pine disinfectant. I went into the last stall, locked the door, and sat on the toilet lid. My hands were sweating. My heart was galloping in my chest like a runaway horse. I breathed deep 1, 2, 3 times. I took my phone out of my purse with trembling fingers. And then I did something that I never, ever imagined I would do. What happened in that bathroom changed everything. The woman who entered was not the same one who left. If you have ever wanted revenge on someone who humiliated you, if you ever dreamed of getting justice for yourself, what comes now is going to leave you breathless. Sitting in that bathroom stall with the muffled noise of the airport filtering through the door, I held my phone with hands I could not control. They shook so much I had to rest my elbows on my knees to hold it. The screen lit up. There was my wallpaper, a photo of the twins on their 7th birthday, smiling with cake on their cheeks. Matt and Sophie, my grandkids. I loved them with an intensity that hurt. But loving does not mean letting yourself be destroyed. I opened the airline app. My user was already saved. I went to my trips. There appeared the 5 tickets: Margaret Sullivan, Patrick Sullivan, Jessica Sullivan, Matt Sullivan, Sophie Sullivan. Flight 681 to Los Angeles. Connection to Hawaii. All under my name as the account holder. All paid with my money. My finger hovered over the screen. Was I really going to do this? Was I really going to cancel a trip I had paid $4,000 for? Was I really going to disappoint my grandkids? Then I remembered Jessica's voice. You are in the way. You do not know how to travel. You should not even be here. I remembered Patrick's cowardly silence. I remembered the 3 months of slights disguised as organization. I remembered every dollar I had given without being thanked. And I remembered something Robert told me a week before dying when I was crying because Patrick had forgotten my birthday. Margaret, my love, teaching people how to treat you is not being mean. It is loving yourself. My fingers stopped shaking. I tapped the Manage Reservation button. The option Cancel Flight appeared. A warning message jumped on screen. Upon canceling, the refund will be processed as credit to your account according to airline policies. I read the terms. Non-refundable fare. But I could get the value as credit, minus a penalty of $200 per ticket. Over $3,000 of credit that would remain in my name. My heart was beating so fast I felt it in my throat. I selected the 4 tickets. Patrick, Jessica, Matt, Sophie. I left mine active. Are you sure you want to cancel these flights? I was not. I was not sure of anything. I only knew that if I got on that plane, if I spent 7 days swallowing humiliations, if I continued allowing them to treat me like a burden after having paid for everything, then I would be betraying myself in a way I could never forgive. I tapped Confirm Cancellation. The screen loaded for 3 seconds that felt like 3 years. Then it appeared. Cancellation successful. You will receive a confirmation email. I had done it. I really had done it. But I could not stop there. If I was going to do this, I had to do it right. I had to go all the way. I dialed Ruth's number. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was raspy with sleep. Margaret, what happened? It is 6 a.m. Ruth. My voice broke. I'm at the airport. I need you to come here, please. Are you okay? What happened? I told her everything. The words came out rushing, mixed with tears that finally allowed themselves to fall. Jessica's screaming, Patrick's silence, the canceled tickets, everything. There was silence on the other end. Then Ruth's voice, firm as a rock. I am on my way. Give me 40 minutes. Margaret. I am proud of you. We hung up. I took a deep breath. It was not over yet. I opened the booking app. I looked for the hotel reservation, the Royal Hawaiian Resort, 5 nights, 3 rooms, $5,000. Cancellation policy, full refund if canceled 48 hours in advance. I looked at the check-in date. It was in 3 days. I was within the cancellation period. I tapped Cancel Reservation. Reason for cancellation. I selected Change of Plans. Your reservation has been canceled. The refund will be processed in 5 to 7 business days to your credit card. $5,000 that would come back to me. Now came the part that terrified and excited me at the same time. I looked for flights, but not to Hawaii, to Cabo San Lucas. Departure, today. Return in 7 days. I found one on American Airlines. Departure at 11:40 a.m. 2 tickets. One for me, one for Ruth. Seats together. Total price, $1,200. I bought them without thinking twice. Then I looked for a hotel in Cabo. Something nice. Something I deserved. I found a boutique hotel facing the beach near the famous arch. Casa del Sol. Ocean view room. Breakfast included. 7 nights, $2,000 for 2 people. I reserved it. Finally, I looked for a snorkeling tour. The one I always wanted to do, but Robert could not because of his illness. $150 per person. I bought it. I did the math mentally. I had paid $4,000 for flights. I would get back nearly $3,600 as credit. I had paid $5,000 for the hotel, which they would refund me. Now I was spending about $3,500 on my own trip. In the end, I would get money back instead of losing it. And most importantly, I would get my dignity back. I sat in that bathroom for 20 minutes more, waiting for the shaking to pass, for my breathing to normalize, for my determination to solidify like concrete. A woman entered the bathroom and went into the stall next to mine. I heard the noise of her purse as she hung it up, the sound of toilet paper, the normal life of someone who was not about to blow up their own family. When she left and washed her hands, I looked at myself in the mirror through the crack in the door. My eyes were red but dry. My jaw was tense. I looked like another person. Maybe I was. I came out of the stall. I washed my hands with cold water. I wet the back of my neck. I looked at myself in the large mirror above the sinks. There was Margaret Sullivan, 70 years old, gray hair tied in a bun, wrinkles around the eyes that told stories of smiles and tears. Coral blouse I had chosen that morning, thinking about looking pretty for family photos. But that woman in the mirror was no longer the one who entered the airport. That woman had made a decision. She had said enough. She had chosen to love herself over being loved by people who did not know how to love her. "You can do this," I said quietly to my reflection. "You already took the hardest step. Now you just have to walk." I grabbed my purse, took a deep breath, and walked out of the bathroom. The airport remained just as chaotic. Families running suitcases, rolling flight announcements. But I saw it differently. I saw it with the eyes of someone who had just reclaimed her power. I walked back toward the check-in area. In the distance, I saw my family. Jessica was talking to the employee, gesturing with her hands. Patrick was holding Sophie. Matt was playing with his Nintendo Switch. As I approached, Jessica saw me. She rolled her eyes. That gesture I was already sick of. "Finally, mother-in-law. We were about to send someone to look for you. Let's see, I need your passport to check in." I stayed 6 feet away. I held my purse against my chest. "I am not checking in," I said with a firm voice. Jessica blinked, confused. "What do you mean, no? Obviously you have to check your suitcase. You did not understand me, Jessica. I am not checking in because I am not traveling. Because no one is traveling." Patrick's face changed. Confusion gave way to alarm. "Mom, what are you talking about?" The employee at the counter looked at us with discomfort, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. "I am talking about the fact that I canceled the tickets." I said every word coming out clear and precise. The 4 tickets. Yours, Jessica's, Matt's, and Sophie's. Absolute silence. Jessica was the first to react. Her face went from confusion to disbelief, and then to fury. "You did what?" The bomb had just exploded, and what comes now is the justice we were all waiting for. "Do not go away. This is just beginning." Jessica's face transformed into something I had never seen. Her perfectly made-up cheeks turned red. The veins in her neck stood out. And her eyes, those honey-colored eyes that were always calculating, now burned with pure rage she could not control. "What did you do, you crazy old woman?" she screamed. And her voice bounced through the entire check-in area. People in the neighboring lines stopped doing what they were doing. A group of students with backpacks turned to look at us. A complete family stood frozen. The employee at the counter took a step back instinctively, moving away from the conflict. "I canceled the tickets," I repeated, my calm voice contrasting with her hysteria. The 5 tickets were in my name. I bought them. I decided to cancel them. Patrick put Sophie on the floor and took a step toward me, his face pale. "Mom, what are you saying? It has to be a mistake." "You could not. It is not a mistake, son. I did it 15 minutes ago. From the bathroom." Jessica put her hands to her head, pulling her hair. "It cannot be. This is not happening." She turned to the employee. "Sir, please check. It has to be a system error. Our tickets have to be active." The employee, clearly uncomfortable, typed on his computer. His fingers moved fast over the keyboard. He frowned. He typed more. Then he looked up with an apologetic expression. "I am sorry, ma'am. The ticket's in the name of Patrick Sullivan. Jessica Sullivan. Matt Sullivan and Sophie Sullivan appear as canceled." He looked at the screen. 18 minutes ago. Only Margaret Sullivan's ticket is active." Jessica staggered as if she had been slapped. Patrick stood motionless, eyes fixed on me as if he were looking at a stranger. But, Jessica searched for words, her brain clearly struggling to process what was happening. "You cannot do that. We were going on that flight." The kids, she pointed to Matt and Sophie, who looked at us scared, understanding nothing. "I could do it," I said. And every word came out with a calm I did not recognize myself. "Because I bought the tickets. They are in my name. They are my property until they are used. And I decided not to use them. This is illegal." Jessica reached for her bag, taking out her phone. "I am going to call the police. You cannot hijack our tickets." "It is not illegal," intervened the employee, clearly wanting to end this. "If she is the account holder of the purchase, she has the right to cancel. It is airline policy." Jessica glared at him before turning to me. "Why? Why would you do this?" And there it was, the question I had been waiting for. The opportunity to say everything I had kept quiet for months, maybe years. "Why?" I repeated, and something in my voice made Jessica take a step back. "Are you really asking me why, Jessica?" "Yes. We are about to go on vacation." The kids were excited. The vacation that I paid for. My voice rose slightly. "The $4,000 for the tickets that came out of my account. The $5,000 for the hotel that also came out of my card. The tours, the meals, everything. I paid for everything." Patrick opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "And 20 minutes ago, Jessica, you screamed at me in front of all these people that I am in the way, that I do not know how to travel, that I should not even be here." My voice broke slightly, but I continued. "You humiliated me publicly." "And you," I turned to Patrick, "you said nothing. You stood there looking at the floor as if I were the problem and not your wife screaming at your mother." Patrick had glassy eyes. "Mom, No." I raised my hand. "I do not want excuses anymore. I do not want explanations anymore. For 3 months I organized this trip, paying every penny while you decided everything without consulting me. You put me in the cheapest room. You excluded me from decisions. You treated me like a burden you had to tolerate. And this morning, after having paid for everything, your wife screamed at me as if I were trash." The tears finally fell, but not from weakness, from liberation. "So I decided that if I am in the way, if I do not know how to travel, if I should not be here, then you are not going either." Jessica let out a scream of frustration. "But the kids! Do not you think about the kids? They were waiting for this trip. What am I going to tell them?" I looked at Matt and Sophie. Their confused little faces broke my heart. Matt was biting his lip, trying not to cry. Sophie hugged her unicorn tight. I crouched down until I was at their level. Jessica tried to intervene, but Patrick stopped her with his arm. "My loves," I told them softly, "I know this is confusing and you are sad, and I am very sorry, truly. But sometimes adults do things that are not right, and someone has to put a stop to it. Your mom disrespected me today, and I cannot allow that. Not even for you, and I love you with all my heart." Sophie asked with a small voice, "Are we not going to the beach anymore, Grandma?" "Not on this trip, my darling. But someday when you are older, you will understand why Grandma had to do this." I stood up. I took out of my purse a manila envelope I had prepared while I was in the bathroom. I had printed it at one of those service kiosks in the airport, paying $1 per page. I handed the envelope to Patrick. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside were all the screenshots, the ticket purchase, the hotel reservation, the charges to my card, the payment confirmations. Everything. Every transaction. Every dollar I had spent. "So you do not forget," I said, "who paid for this vacation you wanted so much." Patrick looked at the papers, turning the pages one by one, and with each page his face grew paler. Jessica snatched the envelope from him and started reviewing. Her expression changed from fury to something more complex, shame mixed with desperation. Mother-in-law. "Okay," I crossed the line. "I admit it." Her voice changed, becoming almost pleading. "I was stressed. I did not sleep well. I should not have screamed at you like that. I apologize. Deal. But that is it. Buy other tickets. Reactivate these. Whatever. But you cannot cancel the trip like this. We already had everything planned. Apologize." The word came out of my mouth with a bitter taste. "Jessica, Apologies do not work when you have been disrespecting me for months, when you use me as a bank, when you make me feel invisible in my own family. An apology does not erase all that. But I am not going to reactivate anything or buy new tickets because I am going to travel, Jessica. I simply am not going to travel with you. The silence that followed was dense, heavy. Patrick found his voice, hoarse. What do you mean you are going to travel? I took out my phone. I showed them the screen. My American Airlines ticket to Cabo San Lucas. Departure, 11:40 a.m. I am going to Cabo. In 5 hours. With Ruth, 7 days in a hotel facing the ocean. I am going to snorkel at the Arch. Something I always wanted to do. I am going to eat fresh seafood. I am going to walk along the marina. I am going to rest without anyone making me feel like I am in the way. Jessica let out a hysterical laugh. Cabo, with Ruth, that gossipy neighbor, with my friend. I corrected her firmly. With someone who respects me, who values me, who does not scream at me in public. I handed another paper to Patrick. It was the cancellation confirmation of the hotel in Hawaii. I also canceled the hotel. I am going to receive a full refund, $5,000 that will return to my account, money that was mine and that I spent thinking I was going to have a nice vacation with my family. But not anymore. I am no longer going to pay to be mistreated. Patrick dropped the papers. He covered his face with his hands. His shoulders were shaking. Mom, forgive me. You are right. Everything you say is true. I was a coward. I should have defended you. I should have... Yes, I interrupted him. You should have, but you did not. And that is something you are going to have to live with, son. Jessica stood motionless, tears running down her perfectly made-up cheeks, ruining her black eyeliner. But they were not tears of regret. They were tears of rage, of frustration, of someone who had just lost control. This is madness, she murmured. Total madness. What am I going to tell my parents, my friends? I already told them we were going to Hawaii, and there was her true concern. Not the damage she had caused me, not the lesson her children had just witnessed, but her image, her pride, her appearance in front of others. Tell them the truth, I said simply. Tell them you screamed at your mother-in-law after she paid for the whole trip and that she decided enough was enough. I turned to leave, but Patrick grabbed my arm. Mom, wait, please, we can fix this. I can pay you back. Let me pay you for the tickets and... I do not want your money, Patrick, I said softly, freeing my arm. I never wanted your money. I wanted your respect, your love, your defense when I needed it most, and that cannot be bought. Please, son, I love you. I will always love you. But I need you to understand something. I am your mother, not your servant or your bank. And if you cannot see me as a human being who deserves dignity, then we need distance. The twins were now crying openly. Jessica hugged them, hiding her own face in Sophie's hair. Patrick was pale, trembling, with silent tears falling down his cheeks. And I felt light, as if I had dropped a 100-pound weight I had been carrying for years. Have a good day, I said, grabbing the handle of my suitcase. And I walked away. I walked toward the terminal exit, toward where Ruth should already be waiting for me. Toward my new life, toward Cabo, toward myself. Behind me, I heard Jessica sobbing. I heard Patrick call me one more time. I heard the children crying. And I kept walking. Because sometimes loving yourself means disappointing others. And that is okay. The one who did not know how to travel had just taken control of her life. But this story does not end yet. What happened in Cabo and what happened after will make you believe in worthy endings. Do not go away. Ruth was waiting for me in the arrivals area with her white hair tied in a braid, jeans, and a turquoise blouse that made her eyes shine. When she saw me, she opened her arms and I ran to her like a girl seeking refuge. It is done, my friend, she whispered in my ear while hugging me. The hardest part is over. We cried there in the middle of the airport, not caring who watched us. But these tears were different. They were not of pain, but of liberation, like when an infected wound finally drains and you can start to heal. Did you really do everything you told me on the phone? Asked Ruth, taking my face in her hands. Everything, I answered, wiping my eyes. I canceled their tickets, I canceled the hotel, and bought ours. We are going to Cabo in 5 hours." Ruth laughed a deep laugh that came from her belly. "Oh, Margaret Sullivan, who are you? And what did you do with my friend who always said yes to everything?" "That woman died an hour ago," I said, and I felt it was true. I am someone else. We went to have breakfast at a restaurant inside the airport. We ordered pancakes with eggs, bacon, hot coffee, and fruit. I ate like I had not eaten in months, savoring every bite, feeling my body regain strength. Ruth told me she had packed in 20 minutes. I threw in the first thing I found: swimsuit, sunscreen, and my good mood. What else do I need? While we were eating, my phone started ringing. It was Patrick. I rejected the call. It rang again. I rejected it again. Then the messages arrived. "Mom, please answer. We need to talk. Jessica is devastated. The kids will not stop crying. How could you do this to us?" That last message hurt. How could you do this to us? As if I were the villain. As if I had been the one who screamed, who humiliated, who disrespected. I showed the messages to Ruth. She shook her head. "He cannot even accept his responsibility. He still blames you." "I know." I put the phone in my purse, and that is why I need this trip. I need space to think, to heal, to remember who I am without them. We boarded the flight at 11:40. Ruth asked for the window. I sat in the aisle. When the plane took off and Chicago became small beneath us, I felt something I had not felt in years. Hope. We arrived in Cabo at 2 in the afternoon. The heat hit us as soon as we left the airport, but it was a kind heat dry, smelling of ocean and desert flowers. The sky was an impossible blue without a single cloud. We took a taxi to the hotel. The driver, a man of about 60 with a cowboy hat, told us about the best places to eat. If you want fresh seafood, go to the office. If you want tacos, Tacos Gus. And if you want to dance, the marina is full of life every night. Hotel Casa del Sol was small but perfect. Colonial-style construction with terracotta walls, colorful tiles, and a central courtyard with a fountain where birds sang. Our room was on the second floor with a balcony that looked directly at the Sea of Cortez. When I opened the balcony doors, the sound of the waves filled my ears. The water was 1,000 shades of blue and green. The golden sand extended for miles on each side. Some people walked along the shore. Others did yoga facing the sunset. "It is beautiful," I sighed. "You deserve it," said Ruth, hugging me by the shoulders. "Every penny, every moment of peace, every smile you are going to have here, you deserve it all." That afternoon we did nothing extraordinary. We put on swimsuits. I wore a black one-piece that made me feel secure and went down to the beach. The water was warm, perfect. We waded up to our knees and let the waves hit our legs while the sun kissed our skin. "What are you thinking about?" Ruth asked. "That 5 years ago when Robert died, I thought my life was over, that the best had already passed. And today, standing here, I realize my life is just starting again." We had dinner at the hotel restaurant, grilled fish with handmade tortillas, cactus salad, and hibiscus tea. The waitress, a young girl with a huge smile, served us as if we were queens. While we ate, my phone vibrated. More messages from Patrick. This time, I did not read them. I simply put the phone on airplane mode. "Well done," approved Ruth. "These 7 days are yours. No one has the right to steal them from you with their drama." The following days were the happiest I had had in years. The second day, we went to downtown Cabo. We walked along the marina, watching artisans, street musicians, and couples holding hands. We bought colorful pottery to decorate my condo. We ate coconut ice cream, sitting on a bench facing the sea. The third day, we took the snorkeling tour to the Arch. It was magical. I put on the life vest, fins, and mask and got into the crystal clear water. Below the surface was a world I had never seen. Fish of all colors, corals, starfish. Ruth swam beside me, pointing out the wonders. When I got out of the water, I felt like a child. "Ruth, I saw a huge yellow fish and a blue one with stripes." The tour guide, a tanned young man named Steve, laughed at my enthusiasm. "That is the way, ma'am. It is never too late to live new adventures." The fourth day, while we were having breakfast at the hotel, I met Arthur. He was an older man, maybe 72, with silver hair perfectly combed back, deep wrinkles around brown eyes, and big worker's hands. He was sitting alone at the next table reading the newspaper and drinking coffee. Our eyes met by accident. He smiled a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Good morning," he said with a deep but kind voice. "Good morning," I replied. "Are you enjoying Cabo?" "Very much," intervened Ruth. "It is our 4th day, and every day is better than the last. That is great. I come here every year since my wife passed away. 3 years ago now. She loved this place." There was something in his tone, in the way he mentioned his wife, that touched my heart. It was the voice of someone who had loved deeply and lost, but who continued honoring that love by living. "I am very sorry," I said sincerely. "Thank you, but I am learning to be okay alone or well accompanied by her memories." We talked during breakfast. Arthur was a retired engineer from Phoenix. He had 2 daughters, already married, 5 grandkids. He told us about his wife Gabriella, who had been an elementary teacher and loved dancing salsa. "Every time I hear salsa," he said, looking at the horizon, "I see her there moving as if there were no tomorrow. She was terrible at dancing, stepped all over me." He laughed, but she was happy. I told him about Robert, about the cancer, about how sometimes I still expected to find him in the kitchen making coffee. Arthur nodded, understanding without words. It was not romance. It was something more valuable, recognition. 2 people who had loved and lost, who had survived and were learning to live again. The following days, Arthur joined our adventures. We went together on a boat tour around the bay. We ate seafood at a restaurant he knew where the ceviche was the best in town. One night at the marina, a band was playing salsa, and he invited Ruth to dance. I watched them from the bench, laughing, while Ruth stepped on his feet exactly as Gabriella had done. "Do not you dance?" he asked me later, offering his hand. "Not in years," I admitted. "Years do not matter. Music does." We danced clumsy, messy laughing when we messed up, and for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. Not as a mother, not as a grandmother, not as the woman who always gave, just as Margaret, a woman of 70, with a whole life ahead. During those 7 days in Cabo, I posted photos on Instagram. Me, who almost never used social media, but I wanted to leave a record. I wanted it to be recorded that Margaret Sullivan had traveled, had smiled, had lived. Photos on the beach with a sun hat, photos with Ruth toasting with piña coladas, photos of the sunset from the balcony, photos of snorkeling with thumbs up. Every photo was a testimony. I do know how to travel, and I do it perfectly alone. I did not open Patrick's messages until the 6th day. There were 47 unread messages. I read them all at once, sitting on the balcony while the sun went down. The first ones were of anger. "This is immature. I cannot believe you did this to us. The kids ask for you, and I do not know what to tell them." Then came the negotiation ones. "What do you want us to do? Jessica is willing to apologize formally. We can have a dinner when you return, clear everything up." After that, the guilt ones. "Mom, the kids cry for you." "Sophie says Grandma does not love them anymore. Is this how you are going to solve things? Running away." And finally, in message 43, something different. "Mom, I spoke with a therapist. He suggested I seek help. Jessica and I have many problems, not just with you, between us. I think you were right about everything. And I am sorry. I really am sorry. I do not expect you to forgive me soon. I just want you to know I saw your Instagram. You look happy. You look free. And it hurts to know I was the one keeping you prisoner. I love you, Mom. I will always love you. And I am going to work on being the son you deserve, even if it takes me years." I read that message 3 times. I cried, but I did not call. Not yet. Because forgiving does not mean forgetting, and healing takes time. The last day in Cabo, Arthur invited us to breakfast. He gave us his phone number. "If you ever come to Phoenix, you have a home," he said. "Or if I go to Chicago, I hope you receive me with a coffee." Of course, I said, saving his number carefully. It was not a romance, but it was a door. The possibility that life still had surprises in store, that not everything was written, that at 70 years old I could still make new friends, have new adventures, be a new version of myself. When the plane took off back to Chicago, I looked out the window. Cabo became small beneath us. Ruth slept in the seat next to me, snoring softly. I did not sleep. I stayed awake thinking about everything that had happened. About the scream at the airport, about the decision in the bathroom, about the 7 days of freedom, about Patrick's message. And I understood something fundamental. Self-love is not selfishness. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. And sometimes walking away is the most loving way to teach someone how to treat you. I had flown. The one who did not know how to travel had flown farther than anyone imagined, and she was just beginning. But the story does not end here. What happened when I returned home? The final confrontation with Patrick. And how this broken family started to heal. That comes now, and I promise you, it will be worth every second. The condo smelled stale when I opened the door. 7 days without anyone opening the windows, without sun coming in, without life. I left my suitcase in the entryway and walked straight to the living room, opening every window wide. The fresh March air came in like a sigh of relief. Ruth helped me unpack before going to her own apartment. She hugged me tight at the door. Margaret, I am proud of you. Of the woman you were in that airport, and of the woman returning now. Do not let anyone make you forget what you are worth. When she left, I made myself a chamomile tea and sat in the mustard-colored armchair I loved so much. My phone, which I had kept on airplane mode during the flight, vibrated like crazy when I turned it on. WhatsApp notifications, missed calls, text messages. Most were from Patrick. But there was a new one from a number I did not have saved, Mrs. Margaret, it is, Matt. I am writing from my cousin Tony's cell because Mom will not let me use mine. Grandma, why do not you love us anymore? Sophie cries every night. I am sad too. Did we do something bad? Please answer. My heart broke. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The children. Children always paid for the broken plates of adults. Before I could answer, there was a knock at my door. It was 7 p.m. I was not expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and my heart jumped. Patrick. He was alone, without Jessica, without the kids. He was wearing the same gray jacket I had given him 2 Christmases ago. He had deep circles under his eyes as if he had not slept in days. His hair, usually well combed, was messy with gray hairs I did not remember seeing before. I opened the door, but I stayed in the frame without inviting him in. Mom, his voice came out broken. Thank you for opening. What are you doing here, Patrick? I need to talk to you, please. 5 minutes. I hesitated. A part of me wanted to close the door, but the other part, the one that was still a mother, the one who had carried this man when he was a baby, could not do it. I stepped aside. He entered looking at the condo as if seeing it for the first time in years. He stood in the middle of the living room, hands in pockets, not knowing where to start. Sit down, I said, pointing to the sofa. We sat facing each other. The silence was so dense it could be cut with a knife. I saw your photos on Instagram, he began. You looked happy, really happy. And I realized it has been a long time since I saw you like that. I did not answer. I just waited. Mom, I ruined everything, completely. I let Jessica treat you badly. I let her use you. And the worst is that I used you too. I saw you as a solution to our problems. We need money. We call Mom. We need someone to watch the kids. We call Mom. We need a vacation. Mom pays for it. His voice broke. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I never wondered how you felt. I never thought about what it meant for you to give so much and receive so little. I was a bad son. The worst. Yes, I said simply. You were. He looked up surprised by my direct honesty. Patrick, for 3 months I felt invisible while you organized a trip I was paying for. You put me in the cheapest room. You excluded me from decisions. And when I tried to participate, your wife screamed at me in front of all the people at the airport that I am in the way, that I do not know how to travel, that I should not even be there. I know. And you, my voice rose. You stayed silent, looking at the floor, as if I were the problem. Your mother who gave you life. who worked to give you an education, who supported you when your father died, who was always, always there. That mother received a scream in public, and you did not say a word in her defense. Tears were falling freely down his face now. You are right. You were right about everything, and I have no excuse. I can only tell you that Jessica is very strong. She always has been. And at some point I stopped being myself and became what she needed me to be. I stopped thinking. I stopped defending what was right. I became a coward. That does not justify it. I know. I am not asking you to forgive me. I just came to tell you that you are right about everything, and that I am going to change. I already started. Jessica and I are going to couples therapy. I also have individual therapy. The therapist made me see things that shame me deeply. He leaned forward, hands clasped between his knees. Mom, Jessica had to borrow money from her parents to cancel the reservations we had. Her dad told her very hard things about how she treats people, about her attitude, and she is changing too, or at least she is trying. I am glad for her, I said, and I meant it, truly. But that does not change what happened. It does not erase the pain. I know. That is why I am not asking for forgiveness yet, because I know I do not deserve it. I'm just asking for time to show you I can be better, that I can be the son you deserve. There was a long silence. Outside, the sounds of the city could be heard. Cars passing, children playing in the park, life going on as always. The kids miss you, he finally said. Matt wrote to you, right? Yes. It was not Jessica's idea or mine. He did it on his own. He took his cousin's cell without anyone noticing. When we found out, Jessica wanted him to delete the message, but I told her no, that if Matt needed to write to you, it was his right. That surprised me. A small sign that maybe, just maybe, Patrick was starting to set boundaries. Do they know the truth? I asked. Do they know what happened? Yes. We sat down with them and explained that Mom screamed at Grandma, that Grandma felt very sad and decided not to go on the trip with us, that sometimes adults make mistakes and have to face the consequences, and Jessica agreed with that version. Patrick rubbed his face with both hands. No, she wanted to tell them you canceled the trip on a whim, but I told her no. I told her if we could not be honest with our children about our mistakes, then we had no right to be their parents. We had a terrible fight, but in the end, she accepted. I stared at him, this 42-year-old man who still had traces of the boy he was, his father's honey-colored eyes, the jawline he inherited from me. My son, broken, but trying to rebuild himself. Patrick, I need you to understand something, I said, choosing every word carefully. I love you all. You, the kids, even Jessica in a way. But I cannot go back to being who I was. I cannot go back to saying yes to everything. I cannot go back to allowing you to treat me like a bank or a servant. I am not asking you to. Let me finish. If we are going to rebuild this relationship, it has to be different. There has to be respect boundaries, reciprocity. I cannot be the one who always gives while you only receive. Do you understand that? Yes, completely. And I need time. I cannot pretend everything is fine just because you came to apologize. Apologies are the first step, but healing takes time, maybe months, maybe years. Whatever you need, he said with a firm voice. Mom, I am going to show you I can change even if it takes me a lifetime. He took something out of his pocket, an envelope. He put it on the coffee table between us. What is that? It is $5,000, the money you lent me 3 years ago for my partnership with Fernando. I know you said it did not matter that you had already forgotten it, but I did not forget, and it is time to pay you back. I opened the envelope. Cash $100 bills perfectly counted. Patrick, you did not have to. Yes, I did, because part of the problem is that I assumed your money was my money, that I could take without giving back, that your sacrifices did not matter because you were my mom and moms do that. But I was wrong. Your money is yours. Your time is yours. Your life is yours. And I have no right to any of that unless you decide to give it to me. I looked at the money. Then I looked at him. And for the first time in a long time, I saw my real son. Not the man who had disappointed me, but the man who was trying to be better. Thank you, I said, closing the envelope. This means a lot. There is something else, he continued. Jessica wants to come see you to apologize personally, but only if you are ready. I am not going to pressure you. Whenever you say if you ever want to see her." "I am not ready," I answered honestly. "Maybe in time, but not now." "Understood. I will tell her." He got up to leave. At the door, he turned around. "Mom, one last thing. Could the kids see you?" "It does not have to be here. It could be at a park or wherever you want, just half an hour. They miss you a lot." I thought about Matt and Sophie, their confused faces at the airport. Matt's message, how children always end up trapped in the middle of adult mistakes. This Saturday I said at Central Park at 11 in the morning, "You can take them, but you stay at a distance. I want to talk to them alone." "Perfect, we will be there." "Thank you, Mom." I watched him leave through the window. He walked to his car with shoulders a little straighter than when he arrived. Maybe there was hope. Maybe not. Time would tell. That night before sleeping, I looked at Robert's photograph on my nightstand. "I think I did well, my love," I told the silence. I set boundaries. I defended my dignity. But I did not close the door. There is still hope that this family heals. "What do you think?" Robert did not answer, of course, but in my heart I felt something I interpreted as his approval. He had always wanted me to be strong to defend myself, and finally at my 70 years, I was doing it. I fell asleep that night with the envelope of money in the nightstand drawer, with the memories of Cabo fresh in my mind, and with the hope that on Saturday when I saw my grandkids, I could start to build something new. Something based on love. Yes, but also on respect. On boundaries, on dignity, because that is what every relationship needs to survive. The meeting with the twins is about to happen, and what happened that Saturday in the park was the moment where everything really started to heal. Stay for the closing of this story. I promise you, it will be worth it. Saturday dawned with a clean sky of that deep blue, only seen after it has rained all night. I got up early as always and got ready with care. I did not want to look too dressed up or messy, just myself. I put on comfortable jeans, a lavender blouse Ruth had helped me pick in Cabo, and my white sneakers. I tied my hair in a low ponytail and put on a little pale pink lipstick. Looking in the mirror, I saw a different woman than I had been 2 weeks ago. There was something in my eyes, determination, peace, strength. I arrived at Central Park at 10:30. I bought cotton candy from a vendor and sat on a bench under a tree that dropped purple flowers on the grass. I watched families pass parents pushing strollers, children running after dogs, couples holding hands. Life went on its course indifferent to the small personal dramas of everyone. At 11 o'clock sharp, I saw them arrive. Patrick came walking with Matt and Sophie, one by each hand. The children wore casual clothes, Matt with a Batman t-shirt and shorts, Sophie with a yellow dress with sunflowers and her light-up sneakers. When they saw me, Sophie let go of her father's hand and ran toward me. "Grandma Margaret." I received her in my arms, feeling her little body cling to me with desperation. She smelled of strawberry shampoo and that particular smell children have. Matt arrived later, shyer, but when I hugged him, he also melted against me. "I missed you so much," I told them. And it was true. "We did too," Grandma said, Matt, his voice muffled against my shoulder. Patrick stayed about 30 feet away near the fountain, giving us space as we had agreed. He waved at me, and I nodded. "Come sit with me," I told the kids, pointing to the bench. They sat one on each side, Sophie clinging to my arm as if she feared I would disappear again. "I know you have had difficult days," I began, "and I know you have questions. You can ask me whatever you want." There was silence. Then Matt, always the most direct, asked Grandma, "Do not you love us any more?" My heart squeezed. "I love you with all my heart, Matt. That is never going to change. Never. What happened had nothing to do with you. But you canceled the trip," said Sophie with a small voice. "We were going to go to the beach. I wanted to make sandcastles with you. I know, my love, and I am very sorry. I know you were excited. But sometimes adults do things that hurt other adults, and when that happens, there are consequences." "Mom screamed at you," said Matt, and it was not a question but a statement. "At the airport. I heard her. She said ugly things. So they had understood more than Patrick and Jessica thought. Yes, your mom said things to me that hurt me a lot, and I decided I could not go on a trip where I did not feel respected. Not even for you, and I love you so much." "Why did you have to love yourself first?" Sophie asked. I looked at her surprised. "Who told you that?" "Dad. He said that sometimes loving yourself means disappointing other people, and that is okay." I looked toward where Patrick was. He was watching us from afar, hands in pockets. Our glances met, and he nodded slightly. Maybe he was changing. "Your dad is right," I said, "and it is a very important lesson. Sometimes we think loving means enduring everything, tolerating everything, giving everything, but true love also includes respecting oneself." "Mom cried a lot that week," said Matt, "and she said she was sorry too that she had made a mistake. I'm glad she recognizes it." "Are you going to forgive her?" Sophie asked. "Someday, maybe. But forgiveness takes time. It does not happen overnight. And before forgiveness, change must come. Your mom and dad have to show me things are going to be different." Matt played with his fingers, thoughtful. "Grandma, did we do something bad too? Is that why you did not come see us?" I knelt in front of him, taking his little face in my hands. "Listen to me well, Matt Sullivan. You and your sister did nothing wrong. Nothing. You are children, and adults sometimes make decisions that affect you even if it is not your fault. I did not come to see you because I needed time for me, to heal. But that does not mean I do not love you, or that you are guilty of something." "Are you healed now?" Sophie asked. "I am better, much better, and that is why I am here today, because I missed you, and I want to be in your lives, but in a different way." "Different how?" "Well, I am going to see you less often than before. I am not going to watch you every time your parents need something. I am not going to pay for things like before. But when we see each other, it is going to be quality. It is going to be special, like today." "I like that," said Matt. "I prefer seeing you less but having you happy than seeing you all the time, but sad." The wisdom of children always surprised me. "And did you go to the beach alone?" Sophie asked. "I went to Cabo with my friend Ruth, and it was wonderful. I swam in the ocean. I went snorkeling. I ate delicious fish. I saw incredible sunsets. Snorkeling." Matt's eyes lit up. "Did you see fish?" "Many, of all colors. There was a huge yellow one that looked like a cartoon." "I want to go snorkeling. Someday you will. And when you are older, if you want, we can take a trip together. Just you, Sophie, and me. Would you like that?" They both looked excited. We spent 2 hours in the park. I bought them ice cream. I pushed them on the swings. We played tag until my knees hurt. And the three of us ended up laughing on the grass, watching the clouds pass. It was 2 perfect hours, where we were just grandma and grandkids without the weight of everything else. When it was time to leave, I hugged them tight. "I love you very much. Never forget it." "When do we see you again?" Sophie asked. "In 2 weeks, on Saturday. Right here." "Deal, deal," they said in unison. Patrick approached. The kids ran to him, telling him rush stories about the ice cream and the swings. "Thank you," he told me, for giving them this, for giving us another chance. "It is a process, Patrick, not an instant solution." "I know, but it is a beginning." I watched them walk away, Matt and Sophie jumping around him full of childish energy, and I felt peace. Not complete happiness, not everything resolved, but peace. 6 months later, I was sitting on the balcony of a hotel in Barcelona with a glass of red wine in my hand and Ruth beside me reading a magazine. I had kept my promise. After Cabo came Phoenix, where Arthur showed us the city and introduced me to his daughters. Then New York, where we ate pizza and visited museums. And now Europe. Spain first, then France, Italy. My bank account was no longer as full as before, but it was full of something better. Experiences, memories, life lived on my terms. Patrick and I had rebuilt our relationship slowly. We saw each other once a month for lunch, just him and me. We talked about deep things, his childhood, his fears, his mistakes. He had become transparent with me in a way he never was before. Jessica and I had seen each other 3 times. Difficult conversations where she for the first time had been honest about her insecurities, about how she had seen a threat in me instead of an ally. We were not friends. Maybe we never would be, but we had reached an understanding, mutual respect, and clear boundaries. The twins I saw every 2 weeks. sometimes at the park, sometimes at my house where we baked cookies, sometimes at the movies. Quality time without the obligations of before. And I had discovered who Margaret Sullivan was, beyond mother, beyond grandmother, beyond provider. She was a woman who loved to travel, who enjoyed solitude as much as company, who could set boundaries without feeling guilty, who deserved respect and demanded it, who at 70 years old still had dreams to fulfill. My phone vibrated. A message from Patrick. Mom, Matt got an A in math. He says he wants to tell you on Saturday. Sending you a hug. Me too. Love you. I smiled. I replied, so proud. Tell him congratulations. See you Saturday. Love you guys too. I put the phone away and watched the sunset over Barcelona. The sky was orange and pink. The city lights were starting to turn on. Life bustled in the streets below. What are you thinking about? Ruth asked. About that morning at the airport, I answered. When Jessica screamed at me and I felt the world was ending, I thought I was losing my family, but actually I was finding myself. It was the best scream they ever gave you. Ruth laughed. You are right, because it forced me to do something I should have done years before. Value myself, respect myself, love myself enough not to allow them to treat me like trash. I raised my wine glass to the screams that wake us up, to the difficult decisions, to the trips we take alone, to the women we once were and the women we become. Ruth raised her glass to Margaret Sullivan, the woman who did not know how to travel and who turned out to be the best traveler of all. We toasted while the sun hid over Barcelona. And I thought about all the women who right now are where I was, giving too much, receiving too little, feeling invisible in their own families, enduring what should not be endured for fear of being alone. And if I could tell them something, it would be this. Loneliness hurts less than lack of respect. Being alone is better than being accompanied by people who do not value you. And never, never is it too late to set boundaries, to defend yourself, to choose yourself, because when I stood in that airport and canceled those tickets, I was not being selfish. I was being brave. I was choosing my dignity over their comfort. I was saying for the first time in a long time, I matter too. And that decision, that moment of courage, changed everything. I did not lose my family. I rebuilt it on healthier terms. I did not end up alone. I accompanied myself first, and then the others came. I did not become bitter. I became free. That time at the airport, the one who did not know how to travel was the only one who flew. And I keep flying. Every day, every decision, every boundary I set, every time I choose myself, I keep flying. Because true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take from you. And from me, no one is ever going to take my dignity again. This has been my story. The story of how a scream in an airport became my awakening, of how hitting rock bottom was the push I needed to fly. If this confession touched your heart, if you have ever felt you give more than you receive, if you need that push to set boundaries in your own life, leave me a comment telling me where you are listening from and what part of this story resonated most with you. Like if you believe it is never too late to reclaim your dignity. And subscribe to the channel because I will continue sharing real-life stories you need to hear. Stories of women who said enough. Stories of courage disguised as difficult decisions. Because at the end of the day, the person you most need to save is yourself. I am Margaret Sullivan, and this was my truth. Until the next story, and remember you also know how to fly. You just need to give yourself permission.